Call to order the Bellefonte Borough Council work session. Call to order. Welcome, comments, opening remarks. Welcome, everyone. No council action will be taken during the work session. We're going to start the meeting with a trivia question. Can someone tell me, in this great state that we live in, how many state parks we have? How many state parks do we have? Which I'm sure you all take advantage of.
204.
It's an X. That's a terrible guess, Chief.
135 on that.
Better. 124 state parks with over 300,000 acres. So get out there and enjoy state parks. Right?
So that does not include the state forest. How many of those are there?
Joanne, you're taking the fun out of it. I'm moving on. Items for discussion. We're going to have a presentation on safe routes to parks grant by Jenny Lynn Schuster and Catherine Spielvogel. So come on up. Welcome. Yeah.
So how do we click through?
You'll have to just tell me to click. Just give me a nod, Jenny Lynn, and we'll move it along. Yeah, you got a few. You have 45 seconds per slide.
Well, we really wanted to thank everybody for having us today. Safe routes to parks is something that we've been working on for probably the past year and a half. And it's really, Safe Routes to Park is really about making a difference in people's lives. Next. So Bellefonte was actually one of 4 communities in Pennsylvania that was selected to participate in this program. This is a grant that we received back or at the beginning of the year. And so their national team, they provide assistance. They will be in Bellefonte, which we'll kind of talk about the different sessions, and hopefully lots of you got invites to some of those sessions on July 17th and 18th. And then I also did want to mention that we are partnering with Bellefonte Historic Preservation Foundation as the partnership between Safe Routes and Bellefonte. So parks are really about centering community. It is the vision of the statewide outdoor rec plan that everybody in Pennsylvania lives within a 10-minute walk to a park. So they can be platforms for many things, such as civic engagement. They have lots of positive health benefits, and they also stimulate economic development. And how lucky are we? Because this is one of the most beautiful parks in Pennsylvania and one of our greatest assets. And everyone deserves safe and easy access to parks, both community members and visitors alike. So in Bellefonte, we have a few select images. I would like to bring attention to the one on the right. So this is on South Potter Street, right by Good Intent Cidery. Almost every single time that we have walked back there, this gentleman in his wheelchair is kind of navigating that street. We also see many children on that street as well. And then if you look at the top left-hand image, so that is right on Water Street. Willow Bank is just kind of up the hill to the right, and then to the left is kind of the entrance to Missoula Park. And so in this Safe Routes to Parks, we've kind of included all of these areas, and there's a map on the right kind of illustrating what the walk is like for each of these individual areas. So we have highlighted the downtown courthouse to Talleyrand Park. And so there you cross over Water Street. We have Missoula Park to Talleyrand Park. And so there you kind of come out Reynolds Ave, and then you make your way down Water Street and cross over. We have the Center County government offices to Talleyrand Park, so kind of a similar path to Missoula. And then we have highlighted Titan Energy Park to Talleyrand Park. So that development, there are lots of businesses that are in there, right? Lots of people like to go to the cidery. There is the dog shop over there. There's Axman Brewery. So we find lots of people are kind of walking on that street, which if anybody has tried to walk that, don't. And then we have, South Potter Street to Talleyrand Park. So you can kind of see the park from Potter Street, but you can't actually access it in a very easy way. Do you want to talk about heat maps? I can talk about heat maps.
go.
So these are Strava heat maps. So the image on the left, that is the heat map. And so as you see kind of the really bright yellow color, that is where there is a lot of biking, cycling, walking activity. And so we've kind of paired a map on the right so that you can kind of see what those streets are. So there is Potter Street is the most heavily used for cycling and walking. And then you can see Willowbank, and Water Street, which are also really heavily utilized. You can kind of see that there's data to show that a lot of the employees that work at the government offices are kind of walking down and navigating their way during lunch breaks to walk in the park. And then there's also lots of walking to and from Titan Energy Park. And then the really bright area is kind of walking over Water Street on High Street to the park there.
And Strava data is not perfect data because it's third party and collecting through apps, but it's the only data that we have to see people walking, cycling, and that kind of thing.
And then this map is showing PennDOT's annual average of daily traffic that happens in a day. So I think all of us know that we have approximately 6,000 residents that live in the borough. And so these numbers are vehicles that are traveling on these roads. So traveling from, kind of coming from State College, going through Benner Township into Bellefonte, there are 19,000 cars that travel on that road. And then if you come in the opposite direction from Milesburg, there are 8,200 cars that come. Just there on South Water Street, we have 15,000 cars kind of going right through the downtown. On High Street is the 3,600 cars. And then High Street by Talleyrand Park, you kind of have an increasing number at 5,700 cars. East Bishop Street is also, has a lot of cars that go down that for that small road kind of coming right through the downtown. When you start to think about the infrastructure of the roads, kind of you can only go in one direction. And so there is an alarming amount of people that kind of come through Bellefonte each day. And the big takeaway, if we look at all of those maps and kind of put that together, is that the most heavily walked and cycled roads are the ones with the most traffic. And we have the opportunity to really make a difference in our community members' daily lives. We have an opportunity to make a difference in visitors that come to Bellefonte. And I mentioned before that we've been working on this project for a good year and a half. And so we have met with many different groups, anywhere from the Talleyrand Park Committee to the railroad. We've engaged architects they actually were part of the Gamble Mill restoration, but they also have done a lot of park and rails to trails work. in the area, so they know Bellefonte really well. They understand kind of working with DCNR and kind of all of those government entities. And then we have worked with many members of Borough as well, kind of walking through the park, analyzing kind of the different areas, where can you get ADA access, and all of those different number of things. So this, I'm not going to go into this presentation a lot because part of our session on the 17th and 18th, Claudia and Glenn are going to be giving a larger presentation. But this project is really about kind of that highlighted area. And so it's about creating connection from Potter Street to Talleyrand Park. And that connection kind of involves many different things, right? There is kind of an abandoned railroad in that location, and so turning that into an actual Rails to Trails project, and then creating connections over to Mazzullo Park. So when you connect over to Mazzullo Park, all of a sudden, some of those underserved neighborhoods that don't have safe access to parks have now safe access to parks, and then kind of connecting over to the Match Factory as well.
Sutton Energy as well.
Yes, and then Sutton Energy is kind of at the end of that development. So when you think about future economic development and kind of all of the opportunities in that area, it's pretty big. Talk about these?
I can read it. Yeah.
Okay. No.
Can you read it?
Yes,
I can't
I
read
can.
it from here.
So health benefits, right? Like, why are parks so important? Why is this project so important? There have been a lot of health studies that show that access to green spaces helps reduce stress. It helps increase physical activity. When we think about depression and anxiety, it also helps in mitigating that. So this is kind of COVID numbers, right? I think we all know that people were getting outdoors more during COVID and kind of right after. So Pennsylvania State Parks saw a 29% increase in visitors, and that's kind of in comparison from 2022 to March of 2019. And then Pennsylvania Trails saw a 52% increase in those numbers. And so we're really seeing this pretty large spike and increase in visitors that are using and accessing state parks and trails, which goes along perfectly with that trivia question. And then the economic benefits. So the economic benefits are huge. Outdoor recreation generates $28.5 billion in economic activity in the state of Pennsylvania. And I didn't make that up. I promise I didn't make that up. And then it supported 150,000 jobs, and it's contributed to $12 billion to the Pennsylvania economy.
Annually.
Yes,
Yeah.
annually.
Can you talk about this? So this is the Heritage Rail Trail, which is close to the Maryland border, and this has been studied for the last, I think, almost 20 years, and they've expanded it recently. And so I was just asking a friend who does a lot of work on economic impact of rails, and this is a new study that they completed last year. That rail, even though it's 26 miles, and we're talking about for Bellefonte a much smaller portion, but the interesting thing about starting with Talleyrand Park is that you have the potential to expand that because we have Milesburg on the one side and State College on the other. That trail had 300,000 visitors. Their hard goods sales, which, you know, the running shoes, bikes, et cetera, 1.8 million last year. The soft goods sales was over 2 million. And what they saw in the study is that they really increased the number at the small town that's there. They increased a number of bed and breakfasts, overnight stays, breweries. Really helped kind of spur economic vitality in the downtown. And those numbers are growing exponentially, which is one of the reasons why we're really interested in a safe routes to parks, because even though it's a wonderful community engagement in terms of, Reynolds Avenue in that neighborhood not having safe access for children to walk to park, which they should have safe access to get there. This is also a wonderful economic opportunity as well.
And I do want to point out that 11 municipalities were involved in this project. So when we've been having conversations with DCED, DCNR, I think it was 26 years ago now, there was and there have been different iterations, but there are already plans and feasibility studies that connect Talleyrand Park to the Arboretum in State College. So portions of those have been built. So there are like around Toft Trees, around kind of State College, but they're very interested in that project in particular because of the number of municipalities that it touches and the impact that kind of overall project makes. So July 17th and 18th, the Safe Routes to Parks National Team will be in Bellefonte. And we have different sessions that are happening on that day. So on Monday from 3 to 5, there will be a community roundtable conversation that will happen at the Chamber of Commerce. This session, we have invited neighbors, community members, anybody that is kind of affiliated with the park, and you guys are welcome to join as many of these. We would love to have you. We know that especially Potter Street recently, I think borough members have kind of received lots of comments kind of about the safety of that area, and so we've invited some of those neighbors to join us. And then on Tuesday, July 18th, from 1 until 3, representatives from DCED, DCNR, the Pennsylvania Downtown Center will be here, and that meeting is really about kind of creating this path for action, right? So what are the grants that you can go after? What are the programs that kind of all fit into place, and when are all of those opening up and available? So really kind of setting this course of action for this project. And then on the evening of July 18th from 5 until 7 at the Gamble Mill on the first floor at the Republic and the Speakeasy, there will be a public engagement workshop. And so that is really for any community member. They are welcome to join, and that'll kind of be another 2-hour session there. And it's really to talk about like what is our shared purpose, right? Like the two of us can have ideas, but it's not impactful and it's not meaningful if the whole community hasn't shared what's important to them and all of the different groups and entities that are involved. And then we have talked about this a little bit, so there are a few borough members that know about this. But on August 27th, which is a Sunday, from 1 to 4 p.m., we would like to host a community event actually on South Potter Street to really showcase what this could be. And so that would be a Sunday afternoon, looking to partner with some cycling organizations that do like helmet and bike fittings, helmet checks, ice cream for kids, that kind of stuff, but really to kind of get everybody's input on this programming and to share the program, to share the project, and to get their input on what they would like to see there. That does require a street closure for safe routes.
Which we will submit immediately.
Next.
It's on our to-do list.
And thank you. These are just a few images of, our wonderful park, kind of the new access, the ADA access on the bridge. There's been lots of talks about how can we even make that safer. And so creating, implementing lights to make that feel safer at night. The Easter egg hunt, which is always a fun event that attracts thousands and thousands of people to the park.
And so one of the reasons why when we were approached by the Safe Routes group, Jenny Lynn and I had led a session on active transportation because in my mind, with economic development, that if you want people to walk around your town, you need to make sure that everybody can have safe access and can park. And Samantha Pearson, who's at the Pennsylvania Downtown Center, offered to come and do a day-long workshop, and we did that. And some of this is her data, actually, and she'll be here as well. She's just fantastic. And so the Safe Routes team approached Jenny Lynn and I to lead this project. And even though the grant was a very small grant, they're a national organization. And so they have the clout, and they have a lobbyist who's able to kind of on our behalf look at this plan and look at all the safety routes going in. So you're looking at the Phoenix Ave, you're looking at going over High Street, you're looking at the other connection on the back. And by incorporating this whole plan into more of an active transportation plan that they've already kind of pre-approved and on our behalf, that really gives Bellefonte a kind of a unique advantage to go after funding, and they'll go after funding. So that's why we kind of jumped.
DCED or?
So Safe Routes to Parks has basically part of the program was helping us put together data, the whole, helping us collect data, do the analysis. They've reached out to all the major stakeholders. They've been in communication with DCD, DCNR, Pennsylvania Department of Health, and kind of advocating on behalf of Bellefonte.
So they will be doing the paperwork to get this going for us.
They're helping to do
Help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to help.
Well, they help. They also the connections and the reach that they have. So they have lobbyists that go to DC that have already shared this project. And so as funding comes up, essentially we're kind of at the top of the list. So it's really important that we kind of share this now, because this program goes through the end of September. So at that point in time, there is a window in which we are relevant. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows this project right now. The 4 towns were specifically highlighted in Pennsylvania. Shapiro's administration has put tons and tons of money that is just for active transportation.
And highlighting Central PA in particular. So, and then this, because it's already a named Safe Routes program, that has higher privileges for funding.
And I know that this grant program ends in September. And then basically what happens next?
We all work together to go after grant funding and build that project.
And that grant funding is, do you have any ideas of where that funding might come from?
Sure, DCNR, DCD, WalkWorks, there's lots of grant funding out there. But also with grant funding comes a match. And so we've already started having conversations with banks, organizations here that would be willing to kind of provide money for this project.
So that community event on August 27th is pretty important,
It is.
seeing that you just said about it all ending in September. So you guys should come back and remind us all of that event on the 27th. Because it
Yes.
sounds like the more people we can get out to that event, the more we could probably get done. So,
Exactly. Well,
I know
and
you
we-
said, when you introduced it, you said it was something you were kicking around. Sounds like a great idea. I hope we
By
can pull
kicking
it off.
around, we mean we just need approval from council
Oh, yeah.
to actually do the event, and we
Is there
haven't
going to be a
put in-
banner?
Is there going to be a banner?
Because we have trouble with banners.
No,
Okay, good.
no banner.
All right. No, definitely come back and talk to us, talk about this event again on the 27th, so that we can help out as much as we can, and
Yeah,
we can get it out there as much as we can.
And whomever would like to attend any of these sessions, especially having someone from Borough Council who's very familiar with grants at the grant session would be great.
Helpful. You know anybody?
Well, because it's going to be very important that they see that you guys support this project, because the two of us can do so much, but we're not the municipality. Lots of this funding we can't submit,
Just out of
right? The
curiosity,
borough has to
The
submit.
future grant monies, will they be going funneled through the borough or through the Bellefonte Historic Preservation Foundation, or a joint effort, or what? Do you know at this point?
Joint.
It would be a joint.
Yeah, because some monies, the municipality can only apply for some of the funding.
Get it wherever you can, right?
Yes.
That-
From whoever
Will help you get it, yeah.
This is what we were thinking about. I was looking at kind of the Pennsylvania Department of Health, and I was researching kind of where the revenue streams were coming from, right? They were looking at different health initiatives after COVID, and I saw all this money going into active transportation. So I thought, well, let's start studying active transportation, put together an active transportation plan. And Center County doesn't have one, but they will soon. And so if this is a part of it, and especially that Phoenix Ave area, right? If this is now active transportation, then the borough can go after different funding sources for that project.
Good. Good, ladies. Well, thank you. What
Thank
else? You have anything else? You did pretty good with 45 seconds per slide, huh? That was good, though. You threw that out there, they followed it. Huh? You guys have any questions for these ladies? It's a big thing, but I think lots of people would be behind making this. I know it's difficult. I know it's much easier said than done, but very good presentation and lots of good information.
I think there's momentum
Yeah.
behind this. You know, a few years ago, I think if you said connect State College to Bellefonte to
Yeah, that was good.
that was not, but now there's momentum to do that at
Yeah.
higher levels, and for Bellefonte, it'd be really wonderful.
Excellent. Okay, ladies. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our work session is parking ordinance amendment review.
Okay, I think Dawn's gonna bring it up on the screen, and I thought I know there's a couple areas that we had question marks or whatever, I'd like to touch on those. And then if we missed anything, open up to questions. Basically, I think the draft is in pretty good shape for advertisement purposes. So of course it starts out chapter 530, administration, so forth. I'm gonna turn to sections that I know that there were some questions. So I'm flipping through, and then Dawn can catch up once we get to a section. It was in need of an overhaul. It looked like it's been a few years since we really went through this ordinance and updated it. Article 3, traffic control devices, section 530-12. There, we had a list of traffic signals at certain intersections. I just, because of the names here with the comments, I'm going to mention some names. I just, respect really. Joanne mentioned, number 9, Bishop Street and Wilson Street should be deleted because PennDOT says that traffic light is not warranted here. I'm not aware of that case. The light is in place, and we're talking Bishop and Wilson.
Bishop and, I thought they said Howard. Okay,
No.
that was my mistake,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah, so
Sorry.
there's a couple of things here.
Okay,
we-
my mistake.
No, we thought we had it, but just wanted to check. We're
Yeah.
just going through. Let me keep going here.
That's the long one.
Yes, petacycles, section 530-29. Joanne put a lot of time in adding a definition, which was very helpful because we didn't have any definition. I'm okay with adding this verbiage that Joanne is recommending to complete, the idea. We had this word petacycle, and it really wasn't defined, but it's about bicycling. And we would restrict bicycling both in the waterfront and the business district from being ridden on the sidewalks.
And the additional idea was that, because we don't want kids riding tricycles in the street, that would be an exception for them to be on the sidewalk.
Okay, sure. So it goes page after page of streets. I believe in most cases we've corrected like old business names and so on. We tried to strike them and add in intersection names, that would carry on. If we catch one or two, we can still make those corrections. In around the, section 530-36, again, I think it was somewhat dated language. Talked about cab stands, bus loading, unloading areas. I'm not sure who added it, maybe Joanne, but we cleaned it up by saying judicial parking areas, for example, in front of the courthouse along Allegheny or at the T, at the Diamond. There is a no parking zone. It really is primarily on Wednesdays or when Central Court is held. And there's a section 1 adds to the judicial parking in front of the courthouse idea. We tried to clean up the language about loading and unloading. There is sometimes in the ordinance, but also, for example, in section 530-38, it basically says 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. 7 days a week. Then I think another section prior to this, it says council could change that accordingly. Like we do the streetscape project over on Spring and Spring and Bishop. We may adjust that, at some point.
Because of Dollar General.
Well, the street's going to be narrower, and there's a lot of loading, there's a lot of
Right.
trucks
Sure.
loading, unloading at the same time, causing some traveling issues in that area.
I just have a
Yes.
question about
Sure.
that. So I know a lot of times that some of the businesses have no control over when they get certain deliveries. How are we
Well,
gonna
it's
deal
really,
with that?
like in other towns and cities, the government makes an ordinance and people have to abide by
Okay,
it. So they
sure.
got to adjust their delivery times accordingly.
Okay.
We try to balance it out and, try to be fair to the business and fair to people coming through in the busy times of the day through town.
Okay,
So
great, thank you.
It's just something we'll have to do to try to avoid these conflicts.
Sure.
I think we've all seen them there by Dollar General. Sometimes it's hard to squeeze a
Sometimes
vehicle
there's
through
trucks
there.
on both sides of the
Yeah,
street.
you can't get
even
through.
Yeah.
Two cars by.
Right.
Yeah. No, thank you for
Because they're
clarifying that.
nice. And what happens is one of the trucks ends up parking on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And you don't want.
That'll change though with
Yeah.
the streets.
Yeah, that'll help that a lot.
That'd also be for Allegheny Street as well, no?
Well, yeah, we can adjust all the central business area if as needed. I think, our staff in the police department updated the different fees and languages regarding the parking enforcement, the ticketing and issued. So we think that language is acceptable or improved. In the section of 530-45, general regulations,
Can we back up one?
yeah, sure.
530-40, subsection B, it's on page 34.
Ah, yes, okay.
We need to add the waterfront district, that our address says central business district.
Okay. All right, we'll add that wording in. Just on down below there in 530-45, there were some questions about section C, which is, it does have some, it could be considered outdated language. Talks about gatherings, assemblies, and even loitering. The Constitution, the cases have gone through. There's a lot of clarification. I would recommend we just take out section C altogether. It's really not needed. And the police are trained in handling situations, all of that. So just to clean up the ordinance, I recommend taking out section C altogether.
That would resolve my concerns.
Yes, and there's a host of concerns there, so
Yeah.
just take it out, it solves all those problems.
How's that solve all the problems?
Well, loitering is a constitutional issue. It's been decided by the Supreme Court. Public gatherings, protests is a First Amendment area. So, and just to avoid all that, take it out, and we may have, if there's other languages or permitting that could be needed, that's something to look at separately. But there's no real purpose in leaving section C out there.
So then it falls to the police department if there's
Yes,
activity?
who are trained accordingly to handle these issues. Moving through, let's see here. Okay, 530-53, days and hours of parking meter operations. I know there's been a lot of discussions over months since we got past COVID and started enforcing the hours for parking. It's as written or as printed, it's still 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're trying some different activities or trying different personnel. We do believe that it would be a little bit lighter in the evening with enforcement of spaces or metering. We want our personnel to be primarily an ambassador, helping people maybe coming through town or what have you. We do look for more serious violations like driveways that are blocked or fire hydrants that are blocked and that kind of thing. But I just want everybody to be aware it's still posted or listed in the ordinance as 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday would be 9 to noon. The next paragraph.
This is something we can talk about later on in the meeting.
We can, sure, yes, because all this we have as an action item to advertise and make some changes. So, yes, we have the ability to make some changes.
So just to be clear, following up on Randy's.
Yes.
Anything that we have here that is in the red, we assume have already been changed.
Yes.
And if we want to make additional changes or the comments, like in that very long comment, we would have to do that as an amendment.
Yes,
correct?
that'd be the cleanest way, or at least tell me to put it in there.
Okay.
Whatever's crossed out, that's what you'll
Assumed
see.
it's-
Assume it's gone, or whatever's put in, assume that's what's going to be in the final version.
Okay.
So you can see section B, we crossed it out. It was, council does not follow the national holidays. And it's awkward because we work certain days, the county's off other days that we're here. We have union contracts about when their holidays are, and that's literally probably why a lot of those days begun. But anyway, to clean it up, we just like to do away with section B, and then if council determines otherwise in section A, because many times throughout the year, we'll have a special event or like the car cruise, there's literally there's no enforcement because the town's open to the special event. Or someone will say, can we have the parking lot for the special event, whether it's south or west or what have you. In order not to get hung up on particular days, we just recommend take out section B. And as council looks at approving events, then you can decide what days are enforced and what days are not. It just cleans it up. Okay, there's a lot of red in section 530-55. This is where we get into the parking meters. Again, I go back to Chief Weaver's staff. We tried to clarify the language about violations of parking meters. So that's where I think a lot of that came from. So that's just the background. 530-57, the different lots. Now, this is important because I think for a while council wanted to address this, and this is regarding the electric vehicle parking spaces in the lots. We have 8 spaces. So in section C of, again, of 57, this parking, or, parking in the lots, we start adding language about, our idea is to meter these spaces separately. It's the most inexpensive and hopefully a most effective way to solve the problem. We don't have to buy a certain thing. We don't have to pay a certain thing per month. We just, well, the meters, that's, so the meter does have a cell card in it, but it's the least expensive way to solve this problem. But anyway, we have 8 spaces, so it's basically in section C saying the exception of feeding the kiosk is people using the spaces, the EV spaces, will feed these meters, single space parking meters located next to the charging station. And they'll only use credit cards. That's the beginning of this. And section D is about permits, so we can sort of just bypass that. We go down to section F. We looked at the various paragraphs and we tweaked this one, so let me just kind of go through it. The EV stations, again, they're in the lots. We're going to do a single space meter. The space is painted green. We're going to add signage.
Signage is already there.
Well, we're going to signage about feeding the meter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we want to make it as clear as crystal clear. You got to feed the single meter and not feed the kiosk. So the cost of the EV spaces shall be determined by signage and paid at the individual parking meter. Anyone parking and using an EV space pays at the meter, does not have to pay at the kiosk. The cost of these meters shall be independent of the parking kiosk and is the same for electric and non-electric vehicle parking. We're trying to make this easy for the people and easy for enforcement. It's a two-way street. So basically, if somebody desires to park in that space, they got to feed the meter, whether they're using a charging station or not. So, I mean, if
Right, then it's fair across the board.
Yes, fair
too.
across the
Somebody can't-
board.
Yeah,
Now-
you can't say, oh, you're charging me more. Yeah, makes sense.
Yes, and
Okay.
everything I say, this is how it's written.
Yeah.
So
If the
I'm going to make a motion to change this paragraph just slightly. And it would be in the sentence that says EV spaces are empty. Let's see. Okay, it's the third line down where it says
Okay.
EV spaces are empty. Would add a comma after are empty and add for a maximum of 2 hours after to park in these spaces.
We can, once we get in a regular meeting, we can tell you what our thoughts are
And
about
I
it.
can tell you what my thoughts are.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, but let me finish telling you, just making sure everybody's aware of how this is drafted, and that's all it is a
Okay.
draft. EV spaces, don't pay at the kiosk. The cost of the meter is independent, be set by council. If you're using these spaces, you must pay the independent parking meter rate 24/7, 365. And that's because there's an assumption you're parked there to use electricity. If you choose not to use electricity, that's up to you, but you're going to pay to feed the meter. So,
That'll probably be a non-issue, right? I mean,
Well,
we're doing this so that
we're-
the people that use them overnight not have to pay for them. You probably
Yes.
don't have a lot of people parking in those spots. Once we put the signs up, they'll find another place to park.
but I can't.
Probably.
Probably,
Yeah.
but if they choose to park
Yeah.
overnight and charge their
Right.
car, they need
Oh, yeah,
to feed
right.
the meter.
Which is what's behind this whole thing, right?
Yes, as
Yeah.
a fair return or
Right.
some kind of
And here's a
return.
question
Yes.
related to this, is that the parking, there are people who have permits that park in these parking lots.
Yes,
That will not, they can park at any time, and they don't have to deal with the metering and all. Unless they park at these EV slots, and then they have to pay that even if they have a permit. Is that
As of
correct?
right now, yes.
Okay, I just wanted.
Yes, yeah, no, we're not adjusting the permit program
Okay,
for parking lots.
okay,
We're only cleaning up the ordinance, and we're putting in a way, a mechanism to charge for the EV stations.
okay.
We may have to adjust the permit when they pick it up, and we probably will, just to make it clear
That
on
those,
their permit
Yeah,
that
that-
does not
that
include the
include the
EV
EV
parking
lots.
spaces.
yes.
Is there an electric car?
Even if they have an
Well,
electric
if they have
car.
an electric car, they have to pay the meter.
Okay, Ralph, what
So,
else?
so just quick, most of the other language, there's like, where the bag rental, section 53060, there, we must have cleaned that up a little bit, but like the police department issues, someone wants to use a space for a day for construction or what have you, we just cleaned up that language, it was in this ordinance. The most of it's, we try to direct violations and penalties towards the fee schedule, which is easily updated each year. So that's the extent of the changes. There might be a little word,
There's two more that.
okay, yes.
One is on page 37.
Okay, maybe you can go to the section instead.
It's parking and storage of large vehicles.
Does it have a number?
I didn't put it in. Hold on a second,
Okay.
I'll find it. Go backwards. It's section 53041 that starts on page 35, but
Okay.
this change doesn't happen until page 37.
All right, so section 41 though.
Yeah. And it's making an exception to number 7 on page 37, under the park and storage of large vehicles. And I think it needs to have a sentence added that says, the zoning officer may grant an exemption to this prohibition in cases where a home is seriously damaged by fire or other natural disaster that makes the home temporarily uninhabitable, would allow the property owner to live on their property while the home is being repaired.
Basically, when, like we have a situation.
Yeah, right now.
Someone's living in a camper.
Right, so that would allow, and that's that comment over on the right.
Yes, if everybody's okay, I can add that into the draft. I mean, yeah, as, make it part of that section 7.
But it can't be done unless the zoning officer
Yes,
grants it.
yeah,
is what-
exceptional situation.
Yeah,
Yeah, exceptional circumstances.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there
no
we go.
detail
Yeah.
on it, just.
right, right. And then the other ones on page 40 to 41, and hold on, and this is a lot of those parking violation things. It's, let me see, it's section 530-43, violations and penalties. The schedule, Borough Bellefonte with the fines, those fines are still in here. I figured out a way to get rid of them. So, on page 4041, you would change the column under parking meter fines by removing the 3 set fees and changing it to read 3 levels of fines for overtime. Parking has outlined in the borough's fee schedule, and then all the ones below that would remove the actual fines and say other types of parking violations shall be charged as outlined in the borough's fee schedule, and then just list them. And then down at the bottom, you have like a section that says the parking lots, and I think just to kind of collapse it a little bit, you could say restricted area in a parking lot, parking across a line in a parking lot, and back-in parking in a parking lot unless charging an electric vehicle. Because there's some vehicles that if you do head-in parking, you can't get the cord to the back of the car.
Okay.
And if it helps, I can send you those notes
Yeah,
afterwards.
it would help, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're hearing, unless there's objections, I'll you know, we'll go ahead and put that verbiage in the draft.
Okay.
Unless this was something that the district magistrate wanted to see in the
Yeah,
ordinance.
that would be the only thing, like, there
Yeah.
might be a wording on the fees.
Yeah,
Now, I don't think these fees were updated, but there might be something that, sometimes that, like a fine has to be in the ordinance.
Was there a problem with the
There must have been.
fees in the
That's-
last?
Yes, there was, because we met with a district
That's
magistrate.
what started the whole thing,
Yes.
was a meeting with her.
Yes.
All right, well, we have to move on if we're gonna have time for the next one. Yeah, go ahead.
What is the official lane of Cow, or what is the official name of Cowdrick? Is it lane?
We
Is it
call,
street?
we switched them all to lanes, for the
Okay.
most part. I shouldn't say all.
Because it's two different ways in here. I happen to notice when we're flipping through.
I'll try to look for that, but it should be
And Google
lanes.
Maps calls it Cowdrick Alley. That's why I was
Well,
wondering.
it used to be,
yeah, they used to be out.
You changed them back in,
90s or somewhere.
Okay, so
With the new signage.
Oh, maybe. All right, so,
All right.
yes, okay, so in a regular meeting, again, this will be something, look at advertising, and make some formal discussions if you want to. I mean, I can incorporate the discussions as I heard them.
Okay, next, we're gonna go, item C is the agreement to purchase the railroad spur along Potter Street.
Yeah, so your timing's
We all
good
s-
tonight, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we did get a draft, agreement of sale from the Cedar-Cog Joint Rail Authority. And long story short, we met with them on site. The spur, the ground of the spur, the first, actually says 500 feet in the notes.
375 feet.
Wait, the first part of the spur from the railroad station, the local railroad, historical railroad society would like to lease because they need a place to park the train cars. They own two of them. One's out of, as telling Kent, one's out of the community, got restored, or they haven't got it back yet. Anyway, they need space for two of these railroad cars. That's their interest in keeping 500, says plus or minus. But anyway, in a nutshell, they want some piece of the spur right near the track, but enough to get off the track, off the main. And then in their lease, they'll be responsible for maintaining, they call it the switch gear, that helps the train get from one track to the next.
Is that in here? Because I don't see it.
No. That is,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's in the map, sorry about that.
Okay.
And it's listed as an Exhibit A to the agreement, so, yeah, if we want to look at, the map's very good, that's kind of what I was thinking of going to. So that yellow and blue first part going, looks like north or up, is, really basically starts at the train station roughly, and comes towards South Potter Street for, it says approximately 500 feet. I talked to some representatives prior to this meeting, and they said they're very much interested in this. They couldn't make this meeting. I said it wasn't absolutely necessary to be here, but they clarified a couple things. They would like the spur, and they would like the metal tracks to stay embedded in the spur. They run these little mini train cars. I know there's a name, but I call them mini train cars that run out to, they run them all over during holiday events and special events. They'd like to run them out by the cidery, maybe out to Sutton at some point. And give rides, drop people off, that kind of thing. So it has some economic activity, some value for them. Someone asked me earlier about money and discussions, and wasn't this to be free? Last fall, when we started talking to the Cedar-Cog Joint Rail Authority, the ground was free, except for doing the subdivision work and all the title transfer work. The price of $18,932 is from the estimate of what Cedar-Cog could sell the metal for the rails for, that's left behind. So there's a little bit of a dilemma. We want the spur, the Railroad Society wants the metal spur, the metal rails to stay in the spur. We could make this work, I think. You know, there's other places where just the top of the rail is sticking above the gravel, and the gravel's compacted, so it's both a walkway and a mini train railway as needed. You know, it could work, I think. And to add to that, the Railroad Society will work with us any way they can to make this work. They know a lot of it's going to fall to the borough to either say yes or no, but we need to make a connection from the spur over in near, we saw the bridge earlier in the walkway, the railroad bridge right at the beginning of Talleyrand Park. We need to make some connection of some kind from the spur over into the park across the active rail, or tied into the walkway, the new bridge walkway that goes across the railroad bridge. So the local folks will work with us, make that happen. We probably should have an agreement with them, you know, if this goes forward and everything. But in a nutshell, that's what the agreement is. I did send the agreement over to our solicitor. He said with a few minor words, he's okay with it. Like, for example, we should make it conditional upon a title search, since we're buying it as is. He would just feel more confident or comfortable if we did a title search ahead of closing, just because, you know, there's a long history of properties and so on in that area. So he just wants to make sure there's no major issues with the title search.
Curiosity question
Yes.
on this map. The yellow and blue line
Yes.
is the approximately 500. Is the 975 the whole thing, including the yellow and blue, or only from the end of the yellow and blue stripes?
My understanding, it's only the blue, the dark blue solid, because, I mean, that's the part they would convey to us. The yellow and blue is a lease. It's not conveyed. Now,
Least
leased
Through
from
us?
CEDACOG to BHRS.
Okay, so
Bellefonte Historical
that
Railroads.
part we're not concerned about.
No, because
Okay.
the Railroad Society, they have, somebody has to maintain it. That switchgear, they're willing to do it. So CEDACOG will lease that to them, maybe for $1 or whatever, but they gotta maintain that switching unit and the tracks. And then after they want space to park the 2 trains, so that, you know, it's estimated 500 feet. After that, about right where the railroad bridge crosses, you know, maybe across from the CVS building, our official piece would start and go out along South Potter Street. And then what I was trying to say is we got to make a connection from there over in across the main track into the park or into the railroad bridge.
Is there access from there for the business that's there?
Southern Engineer?
No,
Well, the spur ends at the
the
parking
cidery,
lot.
the cidery that's there.
The spur and everything runs along Potter Street, so it's as accessible now as it is at any time. So, you know, people right now park up, they probably don't even know it's really a spur unless they see the railings. But there's a few parking spots near the cidery. There's a building that I believe was associated with the railroad. This yellow building, we saw pictures of it at the last meeting. It really should come down. It's just a matter of when and how the agreement's formed, because it blocks the visibility in that area. But anyway, that's another story, another agreement we're working on. So But the spur is accessible, it would be accessible for anybody coming and going along south. There's no barrier, at least today there isn't. Some bike paths, like Pine Creek path, when you get close to the road, they might put a rail up or something, just because it's so close. But I try to think right now, we might have a couple places where, right on the turn by CVS, there might be some railing, metal guardrail separating the spur from the road. I think there is, yeah.
So I have two general questions I think the public would like to know the answer to. The first one is, why are we considering purchasing the railroad spur in general? And the second is, what are our plans for using the spur once we've obtained the 975 feet?
I can reiterate, I think I tried to go over that. The local Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society, which is based here in Bellefonte, who runs these train cars, is asking us, the borough, first of all, CEDACOG wants to give this spur to the borough. The Rail Society would like us to keep the rails intact, keep them in place to run the mini trains out the spur till the end, which
To Sutton Engineering.
Yes, basically,
Okay.
Center Gas and Oil, Sutton Engineering. It ends right at the beginning of their parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the price of $18,932 is what CEDACOG can sell the metal rails for. The estimates attached was in the information. They're not making it up, they're not adding anything. They just said they can sell the rails as is for that much money. They would like us, if we want to keep the rails, really on behalf of BHRS, we would have to buy the rails and get the land for nothing.
So this would not be a rails to trails thing that Jenny, Lynn.
That's not what I said.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify it.
I'm trying to say it as clear as I can. You can add stone, gravel, just like any bike path. It's a fine gravel.
Okay,
Up to the top of the rail.
so
You
could
can-
be used as a pedestrian
Yes.
as well as?
As well, yes.
Okay,
You can
that's
do
what I
both.
wanted to hear.
Yes, it's possible. I'm sure
Okay.
it's easy for people who do these things.
What's the next step then, Ralph? Will this
Next-
come in front of us for a vote? Or?
Yes, if you're interested, I take some feedback, or we, talk to our solicitor. Basically all CEDACOG is looking for, sign the agreement. Now, I mentioned quickly, we talked to the solicitor, he said do a title search, or either do that before the agreement or make it as a condition of the agreement, and then make sure there's no issues, red flags.
Yeah.
But we're getting close to where we could sign the agreement and say we're interested.
What's the quiet claim deed?
Quit claim deed.
Quit claim, is that what it is?
Quit claim deed is basically a deed with no guarantee, that there's any issues.
So there's
And
cost to that, what's the cost to that?
there is work, there's legal work, and there will be survey work. There will be a subdivision plan that has to go through the borough and the county processes. We checked early on with the county, because this is a transfer of a property and it's not clear where, there's no spur laid out on the maps. So we got to create a spur laid out on the maps. So and that creates a subdivision. So basically, to answer your question, there's going to be a several $1,000s at minimum in title work, legal work, and the survey work, and doing the subdivision plan.
So this is not on our agenda for advertising, and that won't happen until
No.
couple months down the road.
Well, it's not on the agenda for action, there's no pressure. But when I talked with our council president and everybody, we'll put it back on for an action item, get some advice from the solicitor. we'll put it back on as an action item, and then you'll be able to consider it.
Okay.
We just want to do a work session to start with.
We may have to do another work session.
You don't, I mean, we can put it under old business and maybe a few tweaks to comments and move it forward.
And here's a thought. So we just had this great presentation on the safe routes to parks this
Yes.
evening. I think that grant program needs to be involved in this discussion because this is the very area that we're talking about. And this could help with the safety of, it would not help with the person using the wheelchair because you can't run a wheelchair
We-
on gravel.
We've met with Jenny, Lynn, and Catherine multiple times. We've walked the spur. We know they're interested, we're interested. I mean, half the presentation was about the spur. We know they're interested. So
Okay.
the decision's going to come down to 9 members of council.
All right, well, we'll talk about it again when we have more time for sure.
Yes.
Ralph, we gotta move on.
Yep.
We gotta, that could,
One thing about that that may be of interest, I did have a conversation with Mark Higgins about.
Yeah,
this
you have to come up
portion.
here.
Oh, I do,
Yeah.
sorry. I don't know
So
if-
Sina can hear you.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk or not. I did have a conversation with Mark Higgins about that portion because he's the president of CEDACOG, just kind of talking about the cost, thinking, oh, would they potentially want to be sponsors? He didn't think so, just because of financial challenges. But they did mention that the Center County may potentially be interested in funding a portion of that rail if we tie it into the grant.
okay,
Good to know.
So just,
consider.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our work session. We gotta move on. We gotta start the Bellefonte Borough Council Business Meeting. Call to order. Welcome everyone to the Bellefonte Borough Council meeting. First thing we'll do is the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Bernier,
Present.
Mr. Brackville. Here. Ms. Cleveland. Here. Ms. Stan. Here. Mr. Johnson is excused. Was he? Oh, okay, sorry. Ms. McKean.
Here.
Mr. Nell.
Here.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Here.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
I'm here.
And Mayor Johnson is excused.
Okay, additions to the council meeting agenda. Do we have any? No? All right. Public comments. So this period is for oral comments. If anybody from the public has something they'd like to say, see you ladies. Come on up to the podium, introduce yourself, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Nobody. All right. Communications.
First one is a letter from notice of invite from Bellefonte Emergency Medical Services to their 6th annual joint meeting, which will be Monday, July 31st, 6:30 p.m. If you're interested, we could RSVP on your behalf, or you can let Scott Rote know directly. They'd like to know by July 28th.
That's signed up.
Okay, all right, great. Great. Next,
Yeah, next.
next item is a coalition against bigger trucks. There's a meeting with Robert Belunas, hopefully that's correct, on Tuesday, July 11th at 11 a.m. here in council chambers. I just remind you, you'll have to likely limit that to no more than 4 council members, so we don't get into any sunshine law issues.
Isn't this something we addressed last year, the same thing?
I-
I know it probably hasn't gotten passed or anything.
It's an invitation. I think there's federal and state pieces of
It
legislation.
was last year too,
I
it's the
got an
same.
email from
Yeah.
Mr. Blunis, we get them regularly from the CABT. And it was just an invitation to meet for a few minutes. And he's always done that, and it's always not
I've
worked
gotten
out.
like 3 emails from him, so.
Right, so.
Deb, have you ever gotten any, I got the same email, I'm curious, do you know if there's, actual legislation in the
That's
works
what
for
this
bigger
meeting is
trucks?
about.
Is to tell us about the legislation.
So I said, okay, great, I'd be glad to meet you, and he suggested here, so I checked with the borough,
Yeah.
and this room is available
Okay.
that day and time. The only limitation is we need 4 council members or fewer because of the sunshine law. But I would like to get more information about this organization and the legislation, keeping in mind the commercial and just general development that's going on in the municipalities around
Yeah.
us. If that warehouse goes in Benner Township, there's a likelihood for all the truck traffic west of us on 80 to cut through Bellefonte to get to Benner Township. So I would like to know more about what this organization does and what legislation is in the pipeline.
Yeah, okay. We did talk about this last year, though.
Yeah.
The same
Yeah, we
guys
did.
emailed
I
me
just,
last
who
year.
who else is interested in going with it? Because that's like next week.
I'm interested.
You and Deb.
I'll be here.
I'm possibly interested.
I could probably check that
I
one.
gotta
too.
check my time.
There you go, there's 3 maybe. Can't do more than 4, right?
That's
Yeah,
4.
four is
Yeah.
the most.
Yeah.
4 is the most, okay.
Thank you.
Wall project construction update?
Yeah, there's just some notes that we received from PennDOT, just some notes of where the contractor is. There's no real formal indication that they're going to be done early. It's progressing. There's no delays, but.
That's good.
That's
yeah,
all right.
It's
It's
progressing,
construction.
yes.
Right?
Yes. That's all we have under written communication.
Okay, the consent agenda. Call for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Brackville.
Second, Dan?
Thank you. Roll call vote?
Yeah, Mr. Bernier,
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Miss Clayton.
Yes.
Miss Dan,
Yes.
Miss McKean,
Yes.
Miss Purnell,
Yes.
Miss Sedgwick,
Yes.
Miss Tosti Vasey.
Yep.
Reports. Oh, did I interrupt you?
I said nice.
Reports, yeah. Please try to limit the reports, so the mayor's not here. Chief. Chief Weaver, welcome. Thank you for attending after what I'm sure was a long day.
My day started tonight at 6, so it'll be over
Thanks for
4.
attending
4 a.m.
before your long
4
shift.
a.m. It's starting today.
Get some coffee.
All right, so I had a traffic study done on, you guessed it, South Potter Street for the last week. It was conducted from, let me see here, June 26th to July 7th. Targeted location was South Potter Street near the J.J. Powell pull-off, which we're targeting that where most of the residents live, where it's, pretty narrow, where we've had some complaints about some speeding. So the time frame, 7 days, number of vehicles clocked were 2,223. The average speed was 25.1. Now this is in display mode, mind you, so it's displaying whether it's deterring or adding to the speed, we don't know. And also adding to that targeted enforcement or targeted surveillance of that location, police cruiser sitting. The average speed, 25.1. The high volume period is, you guessed it, 5 p.m. And then the second high volume period would be at 8 o'clock in the morning. The highest speed was 41 miles an hour, which were 4 vehicles. And then going down the threshold, there were 28 vehicles that were traveling 36 to 39. So 35 is the cutoff for us, 35 and above, to cite for speeding under the vehicle code. So the total violations were 34, and the block of the vehicles, 1,600 of them, 1,659 were traveling 21 to 30 miles an hour. So a big chunk of them are within the speed limit, but a big chunk of those going 30, 34, or 25 look very fast in that area.
Sure.
And which sometimes it is a perception, sometimes it isn't. Now, this is only phase 1, okay? So phase 2, I'll put out where currently we have it in the stealth mode, it's just a broken road sign, but it's still gathering data. We'll do that for a week, and then I'll be coming back and giving you, this is what the data looks like. And if you want to look at this, I can send it out. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it tells pretty much every single car that was clocked, when, where, how fast, and it breaks it down into, peak and low peak. So there's certain times where there's no one travels on it. I mean,
Chief, what's that sign out there on Bishop Street before the high school? That's awesome.
that
Whatever
is the
That's awesome.
school districts, and
Oh.
they're loaning that to us.
Because
right
it
now.
flashes the red and blue,
Yes.
so you think
Yep.
there's
Oh,
a
yeah,
police,
it
you think there's a
deters.
police cruiser up
Right,
there.
so the school district is allowing us to use that during the summer months.
Nice. That's a really nice visual deterrent.
It is, it's a deterrent.
Man,
It's a deterrent.
that's great.
Is there any questions about it?
Chief, if you can send that out, it'd be helpful if we
Yeah.
get questions about it. we can have it.
And actually, Sean Luce is going to teach me how to do this myself. I can pull the information down on my phone, so it'll give me alerts if there's a high speed. So I'll get on my bed and go chase it down. All right, may I be excused? I have to.
Yeah,
All
can
right.
Chief go? Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Chief Weaver.
Happy 5th of July.
Yeah. Current and old business. Banner application information.
We're just clarifying, there really isn't an application for banners on the High Street, the Veterans Bridge. We did away with the banners across the PennDOT highways because the metal poles are not in good condition. And, we'll look for funding and look for opportunities to replace those. But we did, when we came up with the special event application, we did create some space on that application for banners. So if you're okay with it, we'd just like to ask the applicant to mention whether they want a banner or not in that application and go from there.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, the parking ordinance draft from our work session. Ralph, do you feel confident that you got most of the comments?
I do. We have the
Is
note.
everybody comfortable that he got what everybody wanted to interject into the parking ordinance?
So
If-
to put this into the minutes, I'll make a motion to accept the discussion we had during the work session,
Thank you.
including my notes to send to you for the
Yeah.
actual language
Yes.
for the comment sections.
Yeah, so
And
this
that
is-
it's all done at once.
yeah, and we'll make the draft accordingly. It can still be tweaked a little bit at the next
Can we
meeting.
tweak this, can we tweak the time?
Yes. I wouldn't say that's a significant change. So you could do it tonight or you can do it at the next meeting, but we're gonna have an action item scheduled for the next meeting on the
Well, I
17th.
think just to remind people, when we talked about change, we were looking at going from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., and I think it was 7 p.m. that night.
Yeah.
Right now, Joanne has a motion. You get a
Yes.
second, and then you can discuss, I
Yeah,
think.
sure.
Yeah, that's just to advertise it, so I need a second.
No, this was
To including everything that you
The
wanted.
motion was to
Incorporate
accept
the
all of
notes,
the
discussion.
discussion,
Right, right.
and then we
Yes.
would do a second motion for advertising.
Right.
So it's to make the motion, make the changes.
I'll second if that's what it
Okay,
is.
so we have a motion and a second.
Brock Bill made the second. For that.
Vote?
Okay, Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Miss Cleaton?
Yes.
Miss Dan?
Yes.
Miss McKean?
Yes.
Miss Purnell?
Yes.
Miss Sedgwick?
Yes.
Miss Tosti Vasey?
Yes.
Okay. So now we need a motion and a second to approve advertisement of the draft for council action that will take place on July 17th.
So moved, right, Bill?
Brackville. Clayton. Excellent. Roll call vote.
Okay, Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Miss Cleaton?
Yes.
Miss Dan?
Yes.
Miss McKean?
Yes.
Miss Purnell?
Yes.
Miss Sedgwick?
Yes.
Miss Tosti Vasey?
Yep.
Deb, or was it Deb?
Yeah, Deb. Bellefonte Center Region COG Rental Unit Code Amendments Ordinance Draft.
Yes, we're looking for approval to advertise the draft or the action of the draft for the next meeting.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Dan.
Dan and then Tosti Vasey.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, let me find it Center Region Code. Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Miss Cleaton.
Yes.
Miss Dan.
Yes.
Miss McKean.
Yes.
Miss Purnell.
Yes.
Miss Sedgwick.
Yes.
Miss Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, new business. First item here is to approval to hang fire station recruitment signs. I'll need a motion and a second to waive any and all fees and other related permits for the Bellefonte Volunteer Fire Department. And is this an example of what,
That's the sign.
that's the sign?
So
So
we're-
if not you, then who? Become a volunteer with Bellefonte Fire Department.
Yes.
And then there's a website where they can go to for information about becoming a volunteer fireman here in Bellefonte.
Is
So-
one of those waivers, we're not charging them the waiver, or we're gonna provide the waiver to,
Yeah.
gonna let them hang it to the
Yeah,
building.
yeah, that's included in this language.
Okay. Need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Clean.
Brackbill made the motion, you seconded.
Okay.
All right. Vote, roll call
No,
vote.
no, I have questions
Oh,
first.
okay.
Where are these temporary signs being hung?
Well, I wouldn't call them temporary, although, because
That's
it's,
the-
well, they're temporary in that they're gonna be more than 30 days, but they can.
5
la-
years.
5 years.
Okay.
So,
That's more than 30 days, Mr. Overman.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. That's excellent. So we got that out there.
we got
Everybody
that out
knows.
there.
Okay.
5 years.
Yes.
All right, where are we hanging them?
Where are they going to be hung?
There- I
Hopefully in a
believe
prominent
On the
location.
outside of the buildings.
Both
On both the
firehouses,
Undyne
we
and
got,
the
we
Logan
got the
firehouse.
Logans and we have the Undyne firehouses.
That's a perfect place to hang them.
Yeah.
All right.
And so other than the length of time, it does generally follow our sign ordinance, correct?
Yes, but we're waiving all exceptions. It is a specific reason.
Extenuating circumstances. We
Extenuating
need firemen.
circumstances.
All right.
Yes.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
Thank you, that helps.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Miss Cleaton.
Yes.
Miss Dan.
Yes.
Miss McKean.
Yes.
Miss Purnell.
Yes.
Miss Sedgwick.
Yes.
Miss Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
American Legion Club 33 requests to close Decatur Lane from East Howard Street to the end of the parking lot on August 12th, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. for a members-only event. Okay, so that's the alley there, right next to the American Legion, I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Maybe we'd go up to Burroughs, basically.
They've done that before.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure they have.
Goes
but-
to Decatur.
Well, yeah, Decatur, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, it is Decatur. It's right.
Howard.
Well,
Okay.
Decatur's running north and south.
Yeah, from
think-
East Howard to the end of the parking lot.
Yeah,
Okay, so
which
it's
is
only a partial way
Burroughs.
up Decatur,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right. Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the closure of that lane for their special event on August 12th from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Dan and Cleaton.
All right, I'll vote to approve it for the American Legion.
Can I just have
Oh,
one
go
one
ahead.
comment,
Yeah.
please? I thought that this was supposed to be administrative, these,
Oh,
the
yeah.
events.
Well, street closings.
Is that a little?
Yeah, because
I
that's.
thought we had passed that all to,
I don't know about street closings. I'd have to check their
Okay,
ordinances,
okay,
but
okay.
I'll have to clarify
Okay.
that.
I
You-
think street closings we're gonna continue to bring to council.
Yeah, because that's a bigger deal usually.
got it, okay,
so.
okay. Thank
Oh,
you
yeah,
very
Yeah,
much.
thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Dan.
Ready?
Yeah.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Miss Cleaton.
Yes.
Miss Dan.
Yes.
Miss McKean.
Yes.
Miss Purnell.
Yes.
Miss Sedgwick.
Yes.
And Miss Tosti Vasey.
Yep.
Next, sustainability project list, partnering with PSU Sustainability.
So there's,
No, that's
no,
fine.
never mind, okay.
I missed one?
No,
Nope.
no, no.
Consider choosing a project from the list. I need a motion and a second.
I'll
from the list.
make a motion to do
Where's the
all of these
list?
projects
the
based on the
packet.
availability of a owner while we're finding an appropriate class of person to do these projects. She doesn't have them set up yet, so this gives her the ability to do whichever ones
Yeah.
that can be done.
Is this what we talked about? Is this what she came and talked to us about?
Well,
Yes and no.
yes and no.
A little bit of it.
Yeah. I think she's
So I
gathered.
could, let's get a second and then I can say what she said.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Discussion.
So
It's a discussion,
she did
yeah.
not mention the Quaker resting ground, because that was mostly outside of the borough. But she has had some conversations, and this council has multiple times tried to get something done to fix that wall. And so she's asking the borough that if we would be willing, in that particular case, to do what we can within the small little piece that is within the borough. Most of it's in Spring Township. The rest of them have already previously been mentioned by her.
For those of you that aren't really aware, the borough got involved with the sustainability program a few years ago. Primarily, this is to give students at Penn State real-life projects to work on. Whether or not we as a borough get anything out of it isn't really the priority. Now, if we do get some information that's valuable and can help us, that's great, but that's not really the purpose of their program. We get involved, we've gotten involved it has helped us in some instances, but we really are getting involved to provide real life projects to students at Penn State. That's kind of the idea.
And that's why we should be able, I made the motion the way I did, so that we can give as many students as possible, as long as Alona gets a professor willing to supervise.
Okay, so we have the motion and the second, and then we're discussing it. But are we to
What is
choose
the
something
dam?
from here? Or-
Yeah.
I don't even understand this.
What's the dam notching?
It's what it sounds like, the Falls Dam in Spring Creek. It's been talked about for a few years about notching it so that kayakers can go over it in a
So-
safe manner.
So, 3 years ago now? 3 years ago, we had a student group that came in and did a project on total dam removal. Initially, we're going to do all 3 different kinds of projects that the Fish and Boat Commission would like us to do. The first one, which we've already gotten a report on, was the full dam removal. The second one is this notching, which Ralph just explained. And the third one is a stepping stone sort of thing to help the fish get from the lower part up to the upper part of Spring Creek, to help the fish move along in a better. The Fish and Boat Commission prefers the total dam removal. They're willing to look at the others, but this provides the students an opportunity. And basically, these are big projects, so what Ilona has done is to separate them into a notching project, the dam removal, which we've already done, and the stepping stone, which will be down the road. And then once we see those and we think about it, we can make some kind of decisions what we as a council would like to see.
I think we as a council need to talk to our residents, because this is gonna create a stinker.
Oh, I know, then that's
And I
why,
see no reason to tear that dam out for as long as it's been there, because that's kind of a history of Bellefonte right now. And when you start taking that stuff away, it never comes back.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
And I would rather not even see it looked at, as far as vital.
The idea behind this is to pick a project as borough council for something in the borough?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Or of the 4 that are listed here, which one's in the borough?
All but the Quaker one.
Okay, so 2, 3, and 4 are in the borough.
Mhm.
And we've also asked for a tree inventory. That's been on our list
Oh,
for
yeah.
some time.
But there's costs involved in that.
There's cost involved in
Yes.
all of them.
Yes.
Each project costs the borough about $1,200.
Oh,
Okay, so now that we have the motion and the second and the discussion, are we gonna actually pick one tonight, or what's the purpose of this being on the agenda?
I
That's
think
a lot of information.
Ilona wanted either one or multiple projects so that she'll continue, as
Sure.
Joanne's saying, find a professor, a group of students to work
Well,
on this. on
I'm for one of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th because it's in the borough. So,
right.
if we're picking, I'd like to pick one that's actually in the borough.
So,
Did I hear you correctly, though, that they all have some cost to the
Yes.
borough? Is
Yes,
that correct?
there is a cost.
Okay. Okay. Is it always 1,200, or does it really?
It's been that way. Now, last couple years, I guess they must have been okay with funding because they haven't charged us, but,
It depends
you
on
know,
the availability.
they do tell us
That's
that,
good.
that, you know, it helps the program
So
operate,
to clarify, we only typically do one project.
typically.
You know, so.
Right, but that's why I said, my motion was to have her look at it, because she doesn't know at this point which ones she has a group of students and a professor for, and if we just tell her she can only look at one, and that falls through, then there is no project. But they're saying that she could look at all three of these and find one that she's got something for. We can move ahead and provide the students with the education that,
And I would just add to all of you, that you're not obligated to just this. If there's something that you have an interest in that you want to add, I mean, if you wanted to have a lighting study done in downtown, they could look for a class to do something like that. So
Okay,
there's
good, because
multiple
that's coming up.
projects.
That's been addressed to us already too, so that would be good light.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe we need to get like a more extensive list of, or ideas from everybody, and then maybe try to make a decision on which one we'd like to present.
You can do it at the next meeting if
Yeah,
you like.
I
There's
mean,
no
that-
hurry to make
right.
a
So-
decision
That's a
this
great
evening.
idea.
so,
Can't
so
you
I'll
do
I'll
that?
move
The
to
watering,
table.
well, I mean, just
So
for
I'll move
example,
to
she
table.
says the water bottling project, I am exploring this from another perspective in terms of marketing. I was just made aware of you know, it sounds like she's just coming into this idea. So maybe if we just get a more extensive list and
Yeah.
more specifics, we'll be able to, each of us will be able to pick what we like, so.
Great.
All right,
Good idea.
So I'll move to table.
all right.
I'll second.
We need to vote on that? To table
I
it?
don't think,
I don't think.
not for
Okay, it's
table.
tabled.
Yes, you do vote for
There you go,
tabling.
there you go.
Maybe.
For
We
table,
got both,
we
Yes, you
the
do.
former two presidents here.
discussion.
One's yes, one's
All
no.
right.
no discussion, but it's.
No discussion. That's it.
Correct.
We're moving on?
No, there's no discussion, you have to have a vote.
Mr. Bernier,
Yes.
Mr. Blackbill,
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton,
Yes.
Ms. Dan,
Yeah.
Ms. McKean.
This is for tabling, right?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Can't hear you.
Yes. Yep, for tabling it.
Tabling, okay, yes.
Ms. Purnell,
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Yes.
and Ms. Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
Next, greenhouse gas inventory. Borough received an offer to have 2017 data updated. This would be done at no cost except for the staff time involved. Ralph, any other
Yeah,
information on
yes,
that?
I received an email from a professor who was with Carlisle Borough about this offer and was familiar with our studies previously, but, you know, with Dawn looking at retirement, and we have, you know, Julie really with her hands full trying to learn.
Every meeting.
Julie trying to learn as much as she can. We don't have the staff time, so it's, if council decides that's a high priority, we're certainly willing to shift gears, but there's just a lot of, there's a lot of flux right now.
Well, the motion is to not update the greenhouse gas inventory at this time.
That's
So
correct,
I'll make
yes.
that motion.
I'll second it.
Vote,
Any
No.
questions?
No
vote, discussion?
discussion, yes. In my opinion, this motion does not make much sense. I understand that this is a no-cost offer by a PhD scientist to update our greenhouse gas inventory, which is part of our climate action plan. For the last year, several council members has asked if has been any update to the CAP, including the greenhouse inventory, since we passed it in September of 2020. In January of this year, Regen from Lancaster proposed doing a greenhouse gas inventory for $3,000 to the council. Council said no because it would cost us money that isn't in the budget this year, but we would consider it for 2023. Now, as Ralph has just said, he received an email from this individual that offers to do the entire greenhouse inventory for free. Let me repeat that, for no cost, $0. The only cost would be some staff time, which would need to be done to request the current data from West Bend Power, Columbia Gas, DEP, CEDACOG, and the oil companies to get the data to this scientists to update our greenhouse gas inventory. This project is exactly how we handled the greenhouse gas inventory in 2019 when DEP paid for the inventory through ICLEI, through the ICLEI program. You have been asking us to update the plan with the current data. This offer does not affect budget in any way, which was your original reason for turning down the proposal in January. This motion appears to me to be an attempt to eliminate the climate action plan by refusing to do the updates outlined in the plan, and then later saying we haven't followed through with the review. A review you have requested and with this motion are now refusing to do. On its face, this motion appears to be another attempt, just like a year ago, when we initially refused to provide the $300 for the sustainability survey, and then said that CAP was dead for the foreseeable future. Is this another attempt to quash it again? Assuming that by taking a no vote today, in other words, voting affirmatively on this motion for these free services, because you'd rather wait and pay money to Regen or a similar company next year, as you said in January, then I'll amend this motion to say, adding that by not accepting this offer, funds will be placed in the 2024 budget for the greenhouse gas inventory in line with our priority budgeting under the borough's sustainability goal, goal number 4, to develop long-term environmental sustainability that we passed in February 2021 as part of our STAMP grant and program that is now being used to create our annual priority-driven budgeting process.
Thank you, Joanne. Any other discussion?
That's an amendment to the motion. You have to have a second.
Well, that was discussion period. Was that your discussion?
The end of it was the motion.
Wait, and I'm just seeing if anybody else has any discussion.
When a motion has been, under Robert's rules, once a motion is
Okay.
made, it needs to be
Well,
second.
Do we need to vote on the first motion and second?
It's an amendment to the
Hold
motion.
on a minute, Joanne, okay? I understand you're passionate about this, but I'm just trying to get through this. What do we have to
So
do?
she made an amendment, so we need a second to
Okay.
make the amendment stick or live on, and then we would vote on the amendment first.
Thank you.
What about the first motion and
Well,
second
we
motion?
We go back after the amendment either passes or fails, or does
Okay.
not get a second. Then we go back to the first motion.
Motion and a second for the amendment that Joanne made then.
She made a motion for
Okay.
the amendment, so we need a second.
No second. Hearing no second.
Can you go back?
Okay, go back to the
So go
original.
back to the original
I have
motion,
a
which,
question. Is there a deadline to accept this offer? Like, is it time sensitive or can we?
I didn't get that from the email, that there was a deadline. Just said, are you guys interested?
So it's possible that we could look at this again in
It-
a
it-
future
I-
time
I-
and not
it's-
necessarily be totally.
It seems
dead.
like it's possible, yes.
The situation I have, and the problem I have with this is we just got the surveys back. We reviewed them, but there was still some more information coming from the survey supposedly from what our discussion was at that meeting. And I would like to see exactly with the program we're working with, where are we? Where are we right now to show us where are those numbers at to show us what we are basically at this point? And how much more do we have to do? Is this gonna be every year, we're gonna add more and more and more and more? I mean, we're just a small community, a small footprint. And I don't wanna get us into a situation where we just keep putting money out there and money out there. So anyway, that's my feeling on it.
So we're
I wanna
back,
see the information, I haven't really seen much.
Yeah, we're back to what's here.
we had a first and second motion to not update the greenhouse, correct?
Correct.
So we need to vote on that?
Yeah.
Roll call vote, Mr. Holderman.
Okay, Mr.
The
Bernier,
vote is,
to not update the greenhouse gas inventory at this
Yes.
time. Mr. Brackbill,
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton,
No.
Ms. Dan,
Yes.
Ms. McKean,
Yes.
Ms. Purnell,
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
No.
Corning Water Main Break, July 28th, overview by the Borough Manager.
I think we have-
Corning Water Main Break.
Don has a
Another
couple
water
pictures
break?
up there.
Jeez, Don.
Why don't you go to the other picture?
Yeah, that was
also,
awesome.
so. Yes, John.
Oh, that's what happened right there across from
Yes,
Smokers Express.
yes. So our Corning line, we have two parts of the water system. One runs from Bellefonte to Dale Summit near the transfer station.
Here's Bellefonte.
What's,
Bellefonte.
yeah, Bellefonte's there, see Dawn's mouth's moving. But everybody knows where the transfer station is. So right above the transfer station, the giant water tower, water tank, 2 million gallon tank, was built when Corning Glass went in. Corning Glass wanted water to run their furnaces or keep their furnaces from melting when they did the glass picture tubes for TVs. Most of us remember those days, but anyway. Anyway, they needed water, so they came to Bellefonte for water in the late 1960s. So we built a separate pump house. You can go back to the next page now. So this water line runs up the Benner Pike, goes by way of Valentine Hill Road. So it comes out here. This whole pump house was built specifically for serving this water system called the Corning Water System. Here's the big spring. And this pump house again, and there's a 20-inch water main that comes out of this pump house along Water Street, Willowbank Street, turns and goes up Valentine Hill Road, follows Valentine Hill Road to the Benner Pike, follows the Benner Pike to about where the Bell Telephone Complex is, Verizon, right at the end of the penitentiary property, and then makes a left-hand turn and goes towards Transfer Road. And then it ends at the tank. But along the way, so it was originally built just to serve them, Corning Glass. But over the years, different systems got on the pipeline because it was nearby. So Bel Air Hills, Dunlap Ford area, which is now Stuckey Ford, Sheets, Penn Eagle Industrial Park, Benner Commerce Park, all those, Amber Lee, all those neighborhoods have been added on to this pipeline. So we had a major water break right here in front of, or right adjacent to Phoenix Avenue, in front of the shoe store.
Boot store, yeah.
Boot store,
Yeah.
Pizza Hut, all that. About 2 in the morning, they got a call, there was a leak, water surfacing. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't with our limestone area, but this line's under heavy pressure in that area because it's pushing that water all the way about 8 miles. So it's heavy, like really high pressure in this area. So usually when there's a leak, it does surface. So they got in and they were gonna they spent most of the day trying to put a clamp on the leak. And the pipeline and everything's very deep. It's about 20 feet deep. So they had to open up the road very wide. But the clamp did not hold. Unfortunately, because of the pressure, the clamp did not hold. So then the second day, they cut out the pipe that was damaged and put in a new piece of pipe, and they call them couplers that can hold that kind of pressure. So they did all that work the second day, and about 3 o'clock we were able to turn. Well, the water, no one was really out of water because we valved off this section. There's water in the tank that served the customers on the system. And of course, we just turned off the valve in the pump house, so the water wasn't being sent. So we could isolate the break, so nobody was out of water. That's the good news. And then because there was a section of pipe taken out, we did do a boil water notice. We had some, issues with it's called a reverse 911 system, where we can call customers and say, here's the break, and it may apply to you, may not apply to you. We could not really isolate this section of the system. So we're looking at an upgrade or way to do that. The system's really not been changed since it went in place many years ago. But we're looking at a way we could draw a map around that section and just notify those citizens. So what we're going to do, just if some of you were around, there was a major gas break issue here a couple years ago. This is similar. We did an after-action review. Usually a bigger event, we do those. We're going to do the same later in July. Review what went good, what didn't go good, what do we need to have on the shelf, what communications do we need to do to upgrade and those kinds of things. So that's in the works. But I was asked to maybe put a little bit of information together. We are looking at, ways to improve our communication to citizens. But all in all, I mean, everybody was safe. The water notice was precautionary. And then once that's in effect, we have to wait for water tests to come back that are negative, no bacteria. So that we have to wait on the lab for that. But typically, that's why it took maybe another day to clear it, because we're waiting on lab results. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
What does that line tie into on its way to?
Well, it doesn't tie into
Chlorine.
anything until you get to what was near the old hotel up there, Carmel. In that area and behind that area, it's kind of the first customer group the Corning line takes on.
By Corning?
Carmel, no,
Hotel.
Carmel,
Used to
going up the
be.
Benner Pike on the left-hand
It's that
side.
small little
It's
hotel.
a small, it's
Yeah.
changed hands
Carmel,
numerous.
that's a thing from the past.
Well, I do what I can think of.
You said something else there, 1960, they
The
tapped
end of-
into our water.
The end of the 60s.
And they've been wanting our water for a long time. Huh?
Anyway, so yes, we don't have any, and the reason what it is, we had to have a chlorine contact time, plus the pressure is significant. So you'd have to have, and actually when you get up there where this area is, they do have reducing valves, like to reduce the pressure. Pan Eagle has a reducing valve. So all along the way till you get to about the penitentiary property, it's significant pressure.
It's amazing they can do that without anybody losing,
Yeah.
service. Wow.
Yeah, so, with the tank, once you get to the tank, that
Yeah.
adds your fire pressure and pressure back to everybody's use, so. That's just a little bit about what happened. So we hopefully make some improvements and, do things better next time. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Stewart. All right. That's it. Council member comments for the good of the order is where we're at for adjournment. So please try to limit your comments, if you have any, to 3 minutes. Julie, you're at our table, so you get to go.
Really?
Yeah. What do you got?
Should introduce you.
Yeah. I am just happy to be here.
You're saying what Don says. You're following in his footsteps. That's perfect.
Exactly.
That's
I'm trying to learn
perfect.
everything.
That was perfect.
And one addition is I'm glad that Ralph went through that water break.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Very good description.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it had been there since,
Yeah, like
that's a long
60s,
time.
Yeah, it was a lot of work for the crews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very-
They did a good job then, because it
Did
was
a
only
great job.
traffic jam up for a day or two.
Yeah,
really,
it was
seemed
just
like.
awkward because we had the detour at the same time.
And at the location
Yes.
with people
Yes.
trying to get in there.
Yeah, that was also about the deepest that we
Yes,
made a
very
repair.
deep.
So that was very
deep.
that was
Huh.
different ground for us.
Yes.
Okay, we'll just continue around the table.
Oh gosh, I forgot. The Bellefonte Community Band and State College Municipal Bands played yesterday in Talleyrand Park for a combined concert. We had a fantastic audience, lots of people in the
Oh,
park.
good.
Yeah.
And I just want to relay from the directors and our band president, thank you to the council and to the borough for allowing use of the park. And Jenna wanted to send a thank you to Alyssa for her help in organizing and getting that all
Nice.
worked out. But again, a great attendance. And you had about 100 musicians in the park who are very excited about a stage and covered space. It was hot.
My God, jeez.
So we hope to do that again in Talleyrand in 2 years.
Nice, very nice.
Barbara?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Couple of things. One, we will have an executive session for some legal matters after the council meeting. It's never good to see our solicitor. Sorry about that. Anyway, the cruise just took place Father's Day weekend. the folks who do that dropped off this very nice plaque for the borough for our assistance with their event. So we'll put it on the shelf over there. That's what I have. Thanks.
How about the band shell? We haven't talked about that in a while. What's the latest?
We had,
It was a hot topic
since they
for-
had the big
I
thing
mean,
over
the
at
covered
Big
stage
Springs.
sounds like a great idea.
I just think they're in the fundraising stage.
Fundraising stage? Okay. I don't have anything else.
I have just two quick updates for council. Number one, Monday night, Spring Township approved conditionally the borough's land development plan for the building that's going to be placed down at the composting site at Musser Lane. So that is moving forward. Hopefully by this fall, perhaps we can get something moving. Second item is just to let everyone know, on the Parkview Heights Stormwater Project, our engineer provided us the draft advertisement and specs and drawings to look at. And we noticed that the Tinnerlig field, they're moving the right field fence in about 21 feet, which initially they were saying, no, it's only going to be moving 5. Well, if you know the Tinnerlig field, that makes it basically a little league field. So we're going to meet with them on site Friday just to talk to them about maybe see if there's anything that we can do to get them to modify that.
Yeah, 21 feet.
Yeah, it's come in a long way. But it's a lot longer than we thought. So after looking at it, we'd like to see if there's something else.
And that's a fairly new improvement, that fence, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
would have to
Just that we just
eliminate some sections and to bring it in. I don't know how they would do that.
well, the fence would they're going to take the fence out until they do the work and then put the fence back up. But because of the trench and everything that is going to run behind the fence, it has to move in, is the way the design is working right now. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, I got two things. One, I think we all got an email from Ms. McManus, a resident up in Parkview Heights, concerned about street safety and kids walking back and forth through Parkview Heights, Shady, Woodland Drive, Tanny Streets, all these streets. So I'd like to get that on the work session agenda next meeting.
Sure. I did not get a copy of that, so someone could
I can
forward
send it
that,
to you.
sure.
And then the next thing I have is we're very close to having the apartments finished at 112 Allegheny Street. And we're looking at having an open house sometime around August 7th, something like that. And I was going to get everybody's name and get something just to put at the table.
Right.
If you're interested. I'm not sure of the times or anything yet, but it's something that's coming up quick. And I also wanted to reach out to some Harb members as well, since they were part of that project. And I don't know if they've ever been invited to that or not, or anything like that, but things are going pretty well. And the other thing, I'm going to talk to you later, Ralph, on the LERTA. We're ready.
Oh,
I think we're pretty close
Yes.
to what we need. I mean,
Sounds
everything's in, all the work, big stuff's done, so let's talk about that later.
Sounds good.
And you know, her email, that's funny, it didn't go to, it just came out to, I don't even know if it went to everybody in the borough council.
So it went to 9, or 8, yeah,
Yeah.
8 plus one other.
I mean, she mentioned a couple things in there that's gonna be, like, I mean,
I know.
everybody, I'm sure, understand that it's a serious concern when you see baseball players walking down along a road that has a guide rail, and they're in between the roadway and the guide rail walking.
Right.
But I don't know what, I don't know what the,
I mean, the
nobody
whole
likes
thing
it, but
with,
man.
with Parkview Heights is gonna be a discussion.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the same discussion we've had a couple times.
Yeah, she described it well. I knew exactly what she was talking about. I just don't know.
Yeah, because we just can't go into the sidewalks, and that has to be up to the owners, the residents. So,
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yes, two things. At the table is a copy of the June 2023 State College magazine. I had it placed at the table because there are 2 articles in it that mention Bellefonte. One's on solar energy and the other is on the increase in electric vehicles in and throughout the county. The second one is I received a complaint about the loud fireworks being shot off all around town yesterday. This is the same complaint we receive every Independence Day weekend and on New Year's Eve. I understand that the state now allows people to fire off commercial-grade fireworks. Still, one of our ordinances says that fireworks cannot be set up within 150 feet of an occupied building in the borough because of the fire and personal safety hazards associated with the proximity to these buildings. This encompasses most, but not all of the borough. What I don't want to happen here is what happened yesterday in Michigan and Texas, where a total of 2 people died and 13 people were injured because of something going wrong with the fireworks set up near the homes in Park Township, outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Upshur County in eastern Texas. I don't know what can be done. I know we have a limited evening police force, and having them going around trying to find the people actually lighting them is a problem. But I think we need to at least let the public know that this is a safety concern, that this is dangerous to do within near buildings. And not only that, but our animals are rather frightened. Thank you.
Yes. My wiener dogs were freaking out.
Dogs and my cat.
Your dachshunds.
Yeah, my dachshunds, excuse me. Deb,
I can't.
that's what they are.
comment.
I mean, come on.
I think it's wrong.
Huh?
Oh, Rita.
Go ahead, Rita.
Oh, great, thanks, I get to follow that.
Hey.
I had 3 short things. First, I wanted to just follow up on my question about the railroad safety plan in case of emergency. Have you heard anything from them? Or?
I haven't. I'll follow back or circle back and see if they can produce that.
Okay. Second thing was, I had a resident call me, she called me about numerous things. I'm only going to touch on one thing this evening, but she mentioned to me, and I think I know where she's talking about, first entrance to the high school on Bishop Street. She said she thinks there's a bump in the road forming like we had further down the road by Schwartz's. And she had told me also that a former employee of the borough said that they thought that these problems are being caused by old water lines that are leaking. I don't know if that's a possibility, but
I mean, we can check it out. There is a main, but I don't believe it's near the driveway. I think it's on the other side of the road, but nevertheless, we were happy to check it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, and then the third thing, I'm going to do a plug for a movie. I don't know how many of you have heard about the movie Sound of Freedom, if any of you have heard that's in the movie theaters right now. But it's a true story, although I'm sure they've, done some dramatization in it, but basically true story of a DHS employee whose job was to track down people into child pornography, and got into actually going to another country and rescuing children and putting some people behind bars. And I was kind of shocked that one of the things they mentioned at the end of the movie is our country is one of the biggest, I say, customers. Mm-hmm. And I think this is something that everybody needs to be informed about, and I highly recommend seeing the movie. It's an eye-opener. Like I said, it was mostly based out of these other countries, what he did to save these children, but our country apparently is a pretty big customer of that. And to quote the main character in the movie, one of the reasons he said that he was doing this is because God's children are not for sale. And I think that's the pretty important thing for us to focus on and maybe see what we can do to make a change.
I'm looking it up right now to follow up on this. There is a human trafficking hotline that anybody can call. If you hold on a second, I'll get you the number. The National Human Trafficking Hotline is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in English and Spanish. The phone number is 888-373-7888.
Don't forget our friend online too.
Yeah. Shauna, what do you got?
Hey.
What do you got?
Well, to follow up on the fireworks, we have to mention the veterans who have PTSD who can also be triggered by fireworks. but I must say, I live in the West Ward, and we do have some colorful fireworks around here. This year, I think the residents have done a better job at abstaining from setting them off before the 4th of July. We had the majority last night, and they didn't really seem to go past 10 o'clock. And the smaller ones, the few smaller ones we had leading up to the 4th, didn't go past 10 o'clock either. It was nothing large and flamboyant. So I think that is improving.
Good. You could hear us the whole meeting? You had no trouble following along with the meeting?
It was great until we got to the fireman's signs, and then it began to fade in and out and cutting in and out. And there were sections that I couldn't hear at all, like Ralph's presentation at the end. But the podium was wonderful. Everything was perfect until then.
We'll have Ralph go to the podium. Hey, we're gonna have to call you, so I'll put, we'll make sure we call you. We're gonna go in the back for an executive session.
Oh, okay.
Okay? All right. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Tosti, Vacy, and Dan.
That concludes our meeting. Thanks for coming.
Okay.